Hello everyone, Grim here, and welcome to my nightmare. Today we have a terrifying tale by the name A Scarier Haunted House, written by the amazing author Anthony Lee. This is a Halloween tale, so please sit back, relax, and prepare for this nightmare. Jess used to love this time of year. She knew once October hit, it truly felt like fall was in full swing. The air turned a bit colder, lattes are pumpkin spiced, and people are preparing for the holidays, and Halloween is coming. October was the best month to be alive to her. She was so excited about getting her costume ready, the horror movie marathons that she was going to watch, but her absolute favorite tradition was going to find a haunted house. She loved the idea of haunted houses. It was like being in a horror movie without any of the danger. All of the actors really getting into the character, and the decorations along with the scary animatronics. It was always an amazingly fun time. Ever since they were kids, she and her little sister Robin would try to find the scariest haunted house to visit. Yes, they waited hours for just a 15 to 30 minute horror show, but they had the best blast almost every single time. She really missed how happy this time of year made her feel. They had lots of good memories, until it happened. When she was a sophomore in college, she didn't live too far from her parents' place. It was only an hour and a half drive away. Robin was a senior in high school around that time, and they were extremely close until Jess went away to university. Robin was extremely introverted, so she struggled a lot without Jess around, but Jess promised they would always keep up the tradition of going to a haunted house together. But being a freshman in college, Jess was overwhelmed with schoolwork. She joined a sorority and was trying to adjust to being away from her family. She didn't mean to, but she broke her promise and ended up not seeing Robin the year before. Robin was completely heartbroken and refused to talk to Jess for a while. Even when Christmas came around, she treated Jess like a stranger. But Jess vowed that she would do everything that she could not to miss another year. That was a bit easier said than done, but on the day of Halloween, Jess was able to clear up her day and drive home. She hadn't talked to Robin in a while, but she knew Robin would be happy from this little surprise. Jess got into the spirit of the season by listening to classic horror movie instrumentals and made her way to see her little sister. When she finally made it into town, it was around 3 p.m, so she thought what better way to surprise her younger sibling than to go to her school and pick her up. Jess pulled into the high school. Even though it was only a couple years since she'd left, she felt so old and out of place being there. Young students were rushing out of the building to escape to the weekend. Jess was hoping to see her instantly, but she couldn't find her, so she pulled out her phone in hopes to catch Robin. The phone rang for a while until...
Hello?
Robin finally answered. She seemed agitated.
Hey, little sis, guess where I am?
Jess said in a singy-song voice.
What, some sorority party?
She said sarcastically.
Come on, guess.
Listen, Jess, it's been a long day. What do you want?
She sneered.
Oh, jeez, I just wanted to surprise you. I'm at your school,
said Jess, a lump started to form in her throat at how coldly Robin was treating her.
What?
She said angrily.
What are you doing? Ugh, I'm not at school.
Are you sick? Why aren't you at school?
She gave a long sigh.
Meet me at home.
She yelled and hung up the phone. Jess looked at her phone for a moment in awe. She said aloud to herself,
What has gotten into her? I know growing up she was always a bit shy and awkward, but I can't believe she really skipped school.
Jess shook her head in disbelief as she started her car. The whole drive she was thinking about how to even approach Robin. It took a few minutes to get to her parents' house. As she pulled into the driveway, Robin was sitting at the front porch with her arms crossed. She looked completely different. Robin and Jess used to look really similar with long blonde hair and fair skin. They definitely looked like sisters, but now Robin was extremely pale. She had dyed her hair black and her hair was cut with jagged bangs. She went from being shy and nerdy to a complete punk. Jess realized that she hadn't seen or talked to Robin for a while, but this was a whole transformation. Jess didn't know how to talk to Robin.
Surprise!
She said nervously. Robin looked at Jess with a deadpan.
What a surprise. What are you doing here?
Jess shook off her surprise and forced a cheery tone.
Well, it's Halloween. Why else would I be here?
Robin stood there silently.
Aha, Robin, I came by to see you.
Cool, you saw me. Now leave.
That really hurt Jess's feelings. She didn't know what was going on with Robin, but she didn't want to give up.
No, I cleared everything out just to come and see you. I thought we'd spend the night together, do our old tradition.
Robin stared at Jess for a moment.
I'd already made plans for tonight, going to a party.
Oh, okay.
Jess didn't know what else to say. The situation made her feel really awkward.
Are Mom and Dad home? Maybe I'll just hang out with them for a minute then.
She said dejectedly. Jess stepped through the front door. Usually her parents would go all out decorating for Halloween, but everything was plain. No pumpkins, no fall wreath, no spooky lights, just a plain house. Jess checked the time on her phone. It was around 4 p.m. Her parents should have been home by now. Robin followed behind Jess and spoke.
Mom and Dad went to go help out at a friend's house for a Halloween party.
Maybe I should have called ahead of time.
Robin stepped by Jess and made her way towards her bedroom, the sound of a door slamming after. Jess didn't know why Robin was so angry, but maybe there was nothing she could do. She was really excited to spend some time with Robin, but if she didn't want to, there was nothing Jess could do. She thought to herself,
Perhaps I wasted time coming over here.
Jess sighed and walked back to her car. Before Jess was able to pull out of the driveway, Robin came out of the house, locked the door behind her and entered the passenger seat. She got in the seat and gave a huff.
Let's go.
Jess couldn't help but smile after that, and she thought to herself,
Maybe there was still hope for a fun night with her.
Jess got on her phone and searched for nearby haunted house attractions. There were a couple of hits, but she chose the highest rated one. She plugged in the address into her GPS, and they made their way. Jess was blasting their favorite songs, but Robin just sat there, looking out the window. When they got to the address, there was a huge crowd. They got out of the car and stepped into the back of a seemingly endless line. Jess was kept entertained by the people dressed up to scare those people waiting. She laughed as a big muscular man shrieked as an undead-looking little girl ran after him. Jess looked over at Robin and she was just typing away on her phone. It took 2 hours just to get their tickets and another 3 hours to get close to the front of the house. Night had fallen and Jess could feel her legs were aching from standing, all of the standing. She glanced over at Robin. For those hours, Robin had just been expressing her disdain over the wait, but she fell silent with anticipation as they stepped closer to the house. At that moment, they felt like children again, waiting to enter the attraction. Jess can barely remember what happened when they went inside the house. She was so focused on Robin that she wasn't paying attention to anything else. She thought she saw someone with a chainsaw and maybe a killer clown, but Robin looked like she wasn't enjoying herself at all. They ran through the rest of the place. The only thing Jess really took in was there was someone who was being possessed by a demon or something. They walked out of the huge home and made their way towards the car.
So lame.
Robin sighed.
Yeah, that didn't seem very scary this year.
The parking area was a few minutes away. It was nearly midnight and the sound of people screaming and laughing was slowly dissipating. Robin seemed really disappointed. Jess felt like she wasted Robin's night. She thought to herself,
Maybe Robin is just getting older and doesn't care for these kinds of things anymore. I mean, the house wasn't even decorated, and from the start she really didn't want to go.
They were walking past a couple of guys when one of them said,
Man, that shit sucked.
He was tall with short brown hair. He looked about Jess's age. He was dressed in dark jeans and a black hoodie. He pressed a cigarette to his lips. His two friends were dressed similarly, whereas one had long blonde hair and the other had short dyed pink hair. The blonde one spoke up. Yeah, we should have gone to the other one. I heard it was like wild. Jess saw Robin twitch a bit. She seemed to be listening to their conversation. The pink-haired one chimed in. Yeah, I think there's still time. Let's hurry and go. They began to quicken their pace. Robin's face went right back to her phone. Jess thought.
There is still something I can do. Hey!
Jess called out to the guys.
You know of a better haunted house?
The brown-haired guy turned around towards Jessica.
Oh yeah, we heard about it from a friend of a friend. It's a bit far from here, but it's supposed to be really scary, like, you gotta sign a waiver and shit.
He said this while flashing Jess a smile. Jess turned and grabbed Robin's hand.
Hey, we're always in search of a good haunted house. Mind if we follow?
Jess didn't think too much about what she was doing. The only thing that was on her mind was making sure that her sister was having fun, like the old times. The guys got into the car. It was a black Dodge Charger, and they waited for Jess to drive behind them. Robin laughed.
Are you serious?
What are you talking about?
Chuckled Jess.
You know exactly what. I can't believe we're going to go follow some randoms to a mysterious haunted house.
She finally smiled.
It is pretty gutsy and cool of you.
I just want us to have a fun night. I know I've been away for a while, but I really wanted to make it up to you. So what's another haunted house going to hurt?
Replied Jess as she ruffled Robin's hair.
Mom and Dad texted. Let me tell them what's up,
said Robin. To Jess it seemed like she was back to her old self. They were driving for a while. From Jess's count it had been roughly 45 minutes to a maximum of an hour. At one point Robin even fell asleep for a bit. Jess just continued to follow the guy's car as they drove out of the city, and after a while they were surrounded by farmland. When reflecting on this moment, Jess knows alarm bells should have been going off in her head, but she was determined to see this haunted house. They went down this dirt road towards this huge farmhouse surrounded by cornfields. She felt some relief as she saw a small line of people near the field. They parked their cars. Jess woke up Robin and they both followed the guys to the small crowd of about 18 or so people. They stood at the end of a line. They didn't know where else to go. Jess walked up to a girl that was standing in line and asked,
"Hey, where do we get tickets? How much are they?"
Before the girl could answer, Jess felt a tap on her shoulder. It was the brown-haired guy that led them there.
Oh, well, I heard that it's free.
What? Really?
Oh yeah, apparently this is all set up by some artist. He's delving into dark and macabre, so this haunted house is kind of like a creepy art show.
Oh, cool.
Exclaimed Robin. They stood in line for a few minutes and suddenly an old man in a black suit came out of the farmhouse and walked towards them. He was tall and incredibly skinny with thinning grey hair. He had white makeup on his face, and as he approached he smiled a disgusting yellow smile. Jess looked towards the rest of the people in line with them. Alarm bells finally went off in her head. The moment she realized that they were mostly female. She heard a scream come from the other side of the line as she saw a woman collapse onto the floor. Jess tried to step forward to see what had happened, but the brown-haired guy grabbed her shoulder. She couldn't move.
"What are you doing?"
Yelled Jess.
"She needs help."
Jess heard Robin yelp and collapse to the floor. She tried to get to her but felt a prick on her neck. Her vision blurred. She started to feel really drowsy. Then, darkness. Jess woke up to the sound of sobbing. She felt so cold as a blast of air hit her skin. She slowly opened her eyes to see a woman crying next to her. The woman was completely naked, sitting with her knees to her head. Jess whispered to herself,
"Where am I? Where is Robin?"
She stood up and looked down at herself. She then noticed that she was covered in bits of hay and dirt.
"Where are my clothes?"
She surveyed her surroundings to see that she was in some sort of barn, in a stall where livestock should be kept. But as she looked around, she noticed that all of the stalls were filled with nude women. The air was filled with the cacophony of sobbing, cries of anger and pleading. Jess just squeezed through some of the bodies to reach the barred doors.
Hey! Where the hell are we?"
She screamed. A woman next to Jess shook her.
We're not getting out."
She began to cry, tears filling her puffy red eyes. Jess, in her mind, repeated to herself,
"What's going on? Am I dreaming?"
Jess thought she heard Robin crying from the stall in front of her. She started to shout with all of her might.
"Robin! Oh my god, Robin, where are you?"
Jess!
Robin screamed back to Jess. She was sobbing uncontrollably.
Oh my god, what's happening? What's going to happen to us?
A gunshot rang. Its blast echoed through the barn. Walking through the aisle was the white-faced man with a pistol in hand.
"Shut the fuck up, you pigs!"
A woman next to Robin spoke up.
"What do you want from us?"
It all happened so quickly, a bang of a gun and she collapsed to the ground. Robin's face was splashed in the woman's blood. She held her mouth to muffle a scream. As the man continued to pace around the aisle.
"Now that we have some peace and quiet, I'm not going to sugarcoat this shit,"
he said, smiling that disgusting yellow-toothed smile.
"You are no longer people. You have become property, just like any old livestock."
He walked up to Robin's stall and brushed her hair behind her ear.
You're gonna be sold, my sweet little piggies. Oh, you're gonna make someone really, really happy.
Jess started going over everything in her head. Naked, cold, Robin. Screaming, crying, Robin. Yelling, fear, Robin. Gunshot, blood, Robin. The man laughed as he made his way down the aisle towards the door. He opened it, and before he left, he gave a loud shout.
I'll be back soon, my sweet piggies. The next shipment is coming soon.
The door slammed behind him. The sound echoed through the room. Everyone was completely silent, the realization of what was happening sinking into them. One woman broke the silence by vomiting onto the floor, followed by short yelps. Jess looked at the stool in front of her. Robin was frozen still. The blood of the other woman splashed onto her face. Jess reached her hands out through the bar of the prison towards her baby sister.
Robin?
She squeezed the words out of her throat. Jess felt so weak, so afraid, but she needed Robin to see her. Jess wanted her to at least know that she was here and that things will be okay. But Jess's knees gave out, making her collapse in the hay covering the ground. She listened to the whispers around her, trying to gather as much information as she could. There were 6 stalls altogether, each numbered with 4, 5, and 6 being occupied. Jess tried to count how many women were in each one. It seemed that there were about 15 women in each stall except for the one Robin was in. The way that man ruthlessly shot that woman burned into Jess's memory. She was in the 6th stall where Robin was in the 5th. Jess looked around her stall to see if she could recognize anyone. Maybe someone that was in the line with her at the haunted house, but no one. She walked up to one of the women and asked her what she knew. The woman was around Jess's age, with medium-length blonde hair. Jess placed her hand onto the woman's shoulder, and she jumped at her touch. The woman looked at Jess with tears in her eyes. They were red and puffy.
Hey, it's okay. It's okay.
Jess tried to comfort her.
My name's Jess. What's yours?
She rubbed her eyes and looked at Jess.
Ella. My name is Ella.
How long do you think you've been in here?
Jess asked. Ella sniffled.
I'm not sure. Maybe 2 days. Maybe 3.
She began to break down a bit. She was cold, hungry, and afraid. So was Jess. Jess looked over at stall 5. Robin had faded into the group of naked women. Jess noticed that they were all grouped up by hair color, with stall 6 being filled with blondes, 5 with black-haired girls, and 4 with redheads. Jess asked herself,
what do they intend to do with us? Did they kidnap us to sell us? How could I be so stupid? I have to look for a way out.
Jess knew she couldn't stay there and wait for them to end her. She walked up to the door. It was a wooden door with metal bars, and she began to slam her body against it. Jess is of pretty average build, but she didn't want to give up. She had to save her sister. She slammed her body into the door again. She must have looked crazy, but she didn't care. This whole damn situation was crazy. Another body pushed against the door alongside her. She looked over and saw that it was Ella. They frantically tried to break the door. They tried to do anything. Her shoulder ached and began to bleed when suddenly they heard a noise. On the opposite side of the aisle, the large double doors began to open, and a large moving truck was backing into the barn. The rumble of the truck's engine filled the air and cut it to a halt. A man came out of the truck. It was the guy who'd led them there, the one who wore the black hoodie and had the dark brown hair. He whistled happily as he walked to the back of the truck and opened it. He called out,
"Looks like it's time for the dark-haired ones. Number 5, you're up."
He walked towards the stall that Robin was in. He fished a bundle of keys from his pocket and unlocked the door. He stepped in front of the door and pointed a large knife towards them. He smiled.
"Alright now, let's make this nice and easy, okay? Pile into the fucking truck. And if you try and resist, well, obviously we can go without 1 or 2 of you."
A few women emerged from the stall. Some began to cry as they lined up at the door. The women were trembling as they slowly approached the open door of the Freightliner. Robin finally emerged. She was covering herself with her arms as she walked past the man. Jess pleaded to herself,
Please, please don't take my sister away."
He looked at her for a moment and grabbed her arm.
"Wait. Now that I'm looking at you, you dyed your hair, didn't you?"
He said concerningly. Robin looked up at him. She was so afraid, and his grip tightened on her arm. She whimpered,
Yes?
"Damn it. Well, what are you then?"
He questioned her. She whispered,
Blonde?
Fuck. Well, good thing I caught this now, I guess.
He pointed his knife at Jess's stall.
"Stand over there. I'll show you your place."
Robin darted towards Jess's stall, and Jess at the same time ran up to it. She shouted,
Robin! Oh my god, Robin!
Robin looked at Jess with tears streaming down her face.
Jess?
Jess reached out to grab Robin's hand. Just as they held each other, they heard a scream come from behind. Jess saw one of the women attempting to make an escape. She tried to run, but the brown-haired man grabbed her by the hair and pulled her to the ground. She kicked and punched at him despite having a knife in his hand. He recalled the bit as she scratched his face.
"You fucking... Ugh!"
Robin quickly turned to the stall door and pulled out a couple of bobbin pins that were buried deep in her hair. She began to insert the pins into the lock of the door. Jess was taken aback by her baby sister. She was full of surprises. While she was picking the lock, the brown-haired man's focus was on the woman trying to escape. The woman continued to scream with all of her might until he shouted,
"Fuck you!"
He then began repeatedly stabbing her in the stomach. Blood poured out of her stab wounds. The other woman about to enter the truck started screaming.
"Fuck! Stop that noise!"
He was covered in blood and pointed his knife towards them. Robin was completely focused on the lock until it clicked. She pulled the lock off and opened the door. She almost fell back as the woman in Jess's stall began to rush out towards their freedom. The man was shocked as he saw a group of nude women rushing out of the stall and began to run to the open double doors.
"Shit, shit, shit!"
He shouted. Then he pulled a phone from his pocket.
"I've got a group of runners!"
The man turned his gaze towards Jess and Robin.
"You little shit! I'll rip you apart!"
Jess grabbed Robin's hand and she pulled her towards the exit. She turned to see the man chasing after them, blood dripping down from his knife. When they stepped beyond the door, they saw dozens of men wearing hoodies chasing down the other woman. Jess looked around and saw that they were completely surrounded by cornfields. She didn't care if they got lost or not. Anywhere would be better than out in the open. So, Jess pulled Robin towards the fields. The cornstalks scratched their skin as they rushed through. They didn't know where they were going. They just ran straight as fast as they could. They were completely surrounded by darkness and the field. They could hear the screams and shouts from the chaos behind them until a loud rumble erupted. Jess turned to see bright lights cutting through the field as a tractor began mowing down the cornstalks behind them.
Shit!
Screamed Robin as the light turned towards them. They ran and ran. They weren't faster than the tractor, but they had a good lead at least. The man began to laugh manically as the stalks in front of him were run down. Jess was in the lead. Robin began to lag behind her. The ground tore at their bare feet. Suddenly, Jess felt a jerk from behind her and she fell forward. Robin had stumbled and caused Jess to fall with her. They both began to scream as the tractor creeped closer. Adrenaline pumped through Jess as she pushed herself up. She tried her hardest to pull Robin up with her, but she was out of energy.
Please, Robin, get the fuck up!
Jess shouted. Robin was out of breath. She looked at Jess for a moment and pulled herself together.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry,
was all she could get out while gasping for air. The tractor was only a few feet away from them. Jess turned and she could see the man's face. He didn't care if he got them dead or alive. He wanted them in pain. They continued to run. The lights shone brighter behind them. Jess pulled Robin to the left, hoping that they could try to shake him off them. The lights slowly turned as they did. Jess turned again, this time towards the right again. The lights creeped towards them. They moved erratically through the cornstalks until they were finally able to get him off them for a moment. One more quick turn and he actually went in the opposite direction. They ran some more until they finally reached a clearing. They were at the area where they lined up. Their luck was actually starting to turn. The fall air chilled their bare skin, but they shook it off. They didn't have a moment to breathe. They ran towards the area where they parked their cars. Jess focused her vision towards the area she left her car, and she saw short beams of flashlights around them. Her heart sank. They couldn't go there. They'd be captured instantly. Jess had to think. Fucking think. Then they heard a crack from behind them as the tractor fully emerged from the cornfield. Jess knew she couldn't delay. She had to go. She looked around and saw the farmhouse. The farmhouse had no lights on. Jess dashed over there with Robin, tightly gripping her hand. Maybe they could find a phone or, at the very least, hide. They moved through the darkness. Their feet were stinging so bad, but they forced their mouths shut to avoid screaming in agony. Jess's vision began to adjust to the darkness, and she saw the side of the farmhouse, a basement door. She decided to take a gamble. She'd rather try and hide than stay out there exposed. The door to the basement was old, stained with what looked like dried blood. They tried to steady their breathing as Jess tried to quietly open the door. The aged wooden door of the basement creaked as she opened it, and a burst of rancid air hit them. Robin began to gag. Vomit rose from Jess's stomach, but she forced it back down. They could hear the sound of men shouting and the tractor moving towards their direction. They quickly ran inside of the basement and Jess shut the door behind them. They were met with absolute darkness and that disgusting rotten smell. They quieted their breathing as the sound of dripping water echoed through the room. Jess could feel Robin's nails dig into her hand as she shook with fear. Jess tried to be brave for both of them, but she couldn't keep the tears from streaming down her face. They crept through the black abyss of the basement, slowly tiptoeing as Jess used her left hand to guide as they continued. Jess tried to feel her way through the darkness until her hands touched something wet and fleshy. It was like her hand had brushed onto a piece of raw meat. The object was hanging on something, and then she noticed the sound of chains rattling. Her heart began to beat so fast.
What is that?
Whispered Robin. Jess pushed it aside and pulled Robin past it. She hoped it was just some kind of livestock hanging from a meat hook, but her hopes were shattered as she heard a faint groan come from beside her in the darkness. In the darkness, Jess shut her eyes tight. She couldn't look at it. She didn't want to see what she thought it was. Jess heard a voice whisper,
Hello?
Answered Robin.
Robin, no!
Jess shouted under her breath.
Help!
Another voice croaked. Then it began to surround them, a cacophony of faint pleads for help, along with the rattling chains. Robin began to sob. She must have muffled them with a free hand. Jess pulled them deeper forward. They bumped into more objects as they went, but they couldn't stop. Jess didn't want to stop. Her hand touched nothing, but her feet bumped into something wooden. She almost stumbled, but was able to catch a wooden rail.
This must be the stairs,
she whispered. They carefully, quietly made their way up the stairs, Jess holding back, sobbing as she heard the whispers for help fading away. Her hand touched what felt like a door and she slowly cracked it open. It was dark, but the light from the moon shone through the window. They were in a kitchen. They both looked around and saw what looked like someone was preparing a meal but had stopped halfway through. Robin stood still in front of the sink, her eyes fixated on a cutting board that was next to it. Jess looked at it and saw a bloody cutting board with meat on it. Jess couldn't hold it back anymore and vomited into the sink. Robin rubbed her back. Despite all of this, Robin's hands felt warm on Jess's bare back.
Look,
whispered Robin as she lifted her hand and started pointing.
A landline phone.
She continued. Jess darted towards the phone and took it off the base. She placed the phone to her ear and she heard a dial tone. Jess hadn't used a landline phone in years, and for her it was amazing to hear that long dial tone. She pressed the numbers 911. It began to ring. Each of the tones sounded like they dragged on for an eternity. She whispered while anticipating the answer.
Please work.
911, what's your emergency?
A voice said in a dulcet tone. Jess couldn't contain herself and just let everything go. It was an incoherent jumble of words like haunted house, human trafficking, murder, woman. The dispatcher must have been taken back, but responded with an assuring voice.
Jessica, My God. Officers are on their way. It's been a whole day since you've been reported missing. Fortunately, we were able to find your sister's phone. Your parents had a GPS tracker on it, but for some reason, it took a while for it to fully locate your area within that rural location.
The dispatcher then told Jess,
Just stay in the line with me until the officers arrive, okay?
But just as Jess was about to answer, there was a sudden sound of a door swinging open. Robin screamed as she saw the white-faced man looking at them. They both ran in the opposite direction of him. They had to stay away until the police came. They turned the corner and found themselves in a living room. Multiple flashlight beams began to shine through the windows. Jess looked around and saw stairs leading up to the next floor. She led Robin upwards. They had to lock themselves in somewhere upstairs. The man screamed and it filled them with unspeakable terror.
Little pigs! Come out! Come out!
They ran up the stairs and Jess heard Robin scream. She looked down to see the white-faced man smiling at them, those disgusting yellow teeth. He stabbed Robin's left calf. She let go of Jess's hand and fell onto the stairs.
No, Robin!
Screamed Jess with all of her might. Robin's blood sprayed onto the white-faced man, and he licked his lips and grinned. Jess tried to pull Robin up. She tried to save her. Robin looked up at Jess with tears in her eyes. She smiled and said,
I love you.
She slowly pulled herself up with the rails of the stairs and launched herself onto him. She was so small, but she shifted all of her weight to crash into him.
Oh, you stupid son of a bitch! Oh, you fucking cunt! Get the fuck off of me!
He cussed and shouted as her body collided into him, and he began to stab her back. Jess couldn't save her. She couldn't help her baby sister. He tried to push Robin's body off him, but with all of her dying strength, she held on to him tightly. Jess cried out her sister's name until the sound of a wooden door cracking open came forth. Police! Jess heard a man shout. For Jess, the rest of everything was a blur. Like, it all happened so damn fast. The police came, they arrested everyone involved. They planned this out for a while and had been tricking women into coming to a haunted house all month. The police saved most of the girls that were captured, but had no idea where the first 3 stalls of women had been sent to, and they're still looking for them. They sent the surviving woman to the hospital immediately, and it took them all a while to recover. But Jess is sure that they're all still going through therapy. Her sister, her sweet baby sister Robin, didn't make it. Jess tried to talk to her parents, and they told her that Robin had been trying her best to be her own person, to be strong enough to take care of herself. She was strong, Jess thought. She was the strongest person Jess will ever know. Jess knew she was able to survive because of her, and she'll think of her every day. And she will always feel like it's her fault. Jess's therapist assured her that it isn't her fault, but she knows it is. All Jess wanted to do was rekindle a relationship with her baby sister. She wanted to create more memories. She wanted them to enjoy the holiday they loved so damn much. But she'll never be able to live with herself, especially during the month of October. And she will never step foot in another haunted house, ever again. Well, there is the end of the amazing Halloween special. I thank every single narrator who joined me in this narration. The combination of your voices have truly made this an amazing story, and I hope that everyone who listens to it enjoys it as much as I did when I was editing it together. I'll be adding a few more things, sound effects and sounds and music, but I don't think I need to add much with how amazing you all were. I have to thank those who have stuck all the way through to the end. I hope the story kept you entrenched as it did me. Honestly, I won't go too much into the usual jargon, but if you want to hear more stories from me, please be sure to like and subscribe. Outside of that, you can find me on my socials. My Twitter is in the link tree below. But anyway, I have taken up way too much of your time, almost 50 minutes now. So, as always, be safe wherever you are. Have a wonderful night or day. Thank you again, and have a happy Halloween.